What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I just want to quickly show you guys how you can fit 34 or even 35-inch tires on your stock Chevy Silverado Trail Boss without adding a level or a lift. Now, the Trail Bosses already come with a 2-inch factory lift, and if you go up to a 34 or 35-inch tire, you may run into some rubbing issues depending on the width of your tire and the offset of your wheel. So just right out the bat, you're not going to be able to fit 35s by 12.5s on a Trail Boss without an extra lift. You're going to need another 2 inches of lift to do that. But if you want to fit like 34s by 11.5 or even 35 by 11.5, you can do it if you have a modest offset and just some very minor trimming. I'm going to show you guys exactly what to do to get these 34s or 35s to fit. So what you're looking at here is a 295/70 R18 Nitto Trail Grappler, brand new with Method bead grip wheels, and these have a 0mm offset, so they are a pretty aggressive offset when compared to the factory offset, which is a positive 28mm offset. These are 0, so it's basically another inch that the wheels are poking out. But you can see here that I'm very close to rubbing here, okay? It's probably just maybe a 1/4 inch of space right there, and I had to remove my mud flap. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this bracket that's under the wheel well liner here. There's only 4 bolts. You just take it out, and what that allows you to do is push this wheel well liner deeper in. It's going to free up like another inch of space. If you don't remove the bracket, your tire is going to rub against that steel bracket, and that could damage your vehicle. It could damage your tire. So you have to remove the bracket, and you have to remove the mud flap and trim the mud flap. So what I'm going to do is cut the mud flap in half and remove the mud flap bracket. Okay, it's just a metal bracket that's bolted on with 4 bolts here, and it just holds the wheel well liner and the mud flap, so it's got a rigid spot to mount onto the wheel well liner and then also the mud flap. Okay, so we're gonna get that out of there because it's basically just useless, you know, and that's gonna free up a lot of space, and that's gonna allow you to fit 34s, even 35s with a modest offset, no more than 0mm, and a width of no more than 11.5, and you will be able to fit those without an extra level or lift. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. Let me just show you guys. I'm already working on the other wheel. So I've already taken off the mud flap, and I've just loosened up one screw here for the wheel well liner, and I've just pulled a little bit of the wheel well liner off. Okay, not too much. You don't have to go crazy. You're just gonna pull enough so you can get a ratchet in there, and you're gonna take these bolts off. You see there's one bolt right there that I'm working on, but there's the bracket right in here, okay? And so when we remove this bracket, it's gonna free up a ton of space, all right? So all you gotta do is just get yourself a ratchet. You're gonna need also a Torx screwdriver to remove the screws that hold the wheel well liner, but I have a 1/2 inch socket here that I'm using to get the bolts off the bracket. Okay, so you can see the bolts in there. So very simple. And then once we remove the bracket, we're gonna get some zip ties, and we're gonna zip tie this wheel well liner to the frame, so it'll suck this wheel well liner in, and it'll free up probably about an inch of space, and then we won't have to worry about rubbing at all during full lock turns, so, or when going off-road. All right, guys, so there's the bracket. Okay, hopefully you can see the bolts there. I've already taken one bolt off. We got one coming out, we got one up there, and then there's one over here. A little bit hard to see, but there's the bracket. You can see it sticks out quite a bit, and so that removes a lot of the free space because you have this metal thing sticking out, and there's little screw holes there, and that's what your wheel well liner screws into. Okay, so once we remove this bracket, all this space here is going to be freed up. So let me just finish doing that and I'll show you guys the results. All right guys, so here's the bracket and you can see how much space it takes up. So this piece of metal right here, your wheel well liner screws into it, and the mud flap as well. Okay, so look at how much space that takes up back there. Okay, that's like 1.5 inches of space that it's taking up, and your tire will just slam right into that metal if you don't take it off, especially on a bump. So look at all the space we've freed up in here. Lots and lots of space. There's the frame already. This is the frame. So got all this space here now. So all we got to do is we're going to take a zip tie, and we're just going to take the zip tie and tie it to this hole here. I don't know if you guys can see. Let me get my flashlight. There's a little hole there, right there. Okay, those are the holes where the mud flap bracket bolts into, and we're just going to zip tie the wheel well liner into that, and that's going to make a lot of space. All right guys, so I popped the wheel well liner back in. Want to show you guys. So normally I would be rubbing right there. You see that? Yeah, I'd be rubbing right there. You can see how close the tire is. Now look at how much space I have now that I removed the bracket. Look at that. Once I pull this in with a zip tie, we're gonna have all that space there. Okay, so I'm just gonna get a good zip tie it, and put the mud flap back on. After I cut the mud flap, I'm gonna cut the mud flap in half so it just kind of covers the outer portion here, because that's really the most important part of the mud flap anyway, to protect your door here. Okay, so any kind of mud and rocks don't get flung up. So I'm going to cut the mud flap in half, attach it back, and then we'll do the other side. Very simple. You don't have to spend thousands on a lift kit or a level kit, which could potentially void your warranty or affect your towing performance, or potentially even have safety issues. So stick with your factory lift. The 2-inch factory lift from Chevy is more than enough, and it's a good quality lift installed at the factory versus a lot of aftermarket lifts. The blocks that you put in your suspension are not that strong. Some of them are made of plastic even. You know, they could fail on you if you're towing especially. So stick with the factory lift. Do this little modification here and you'll easily be able to fit 34 by 11.5s, or even 35s by 11, or 35s by 11.5 if you have a modest offset. So slightly positive offset, or even 0 offset. But any more than that, if you start to go negative, you may have more issues. All right guys, so we're done with this side. Doesn't take long at all. Just got to trim the mud flaps and reinstall them, but you can see all the space here. Okay, so I actually used 2 zip ties, and I zip tied the wheel well liner to the top hole for the bracket. Let me just show you guys what we got going on here. And the camera won't focus, but you can see I put zip ties here through this hole and then down to the hole right here on the frame. And you don't have to tie the zip ties super tight. You want to have a little bit of play, you know, in case you gotta make some adjustments. You want to have a little bit of play, but just enough to hold it back. You don't want it too tight, because you could potentially rip the wheel well liner here, and if you rip it, then you're gonna have to drill another hole in the wheel liner, and it's just gonna be a mess, you know. So you don't have to tie it super tight, just enough so it holds. You can see there's a little wiggle there, okay, but it pulled back the wheel well liner quite far compared to what it was with the bracket. So I'm going to turn the truck on and clock the wheel, and I'll show you how much room we have now. All right guys, so look at how much space we have now. Got like 1 inch of space or more now that that bracket is gone. Look at that. Let me just show you. I can fit my whole hand back here now. Okay, can comfortably fit my whole hand. So I got about 1 inch of space. There's already, the frame is over here. But look, here's my thumb, and I have big hands. My thumb has actually wiggle room back here. Okay, so tons and tons of room. So it can be done, guys. Okay, 34s or 35s by 11 or 11 and a half, 11 and 3/4. You can do it. You just have to be mindful of the offset. Okay, keep a conservative offset, no more than 0 millimeters. These are 0 right here. Okay, and there is a little bit of a poke on them. Let me show you. Even with the 0 offset, you can see there is quite a bit of poke. They're probably sticking out about 1 inch or 1.5 inches outside the wheel wells. These are 11 and 3/4 wide and 34 and a half tall. Okay, so, and I still have tons of room between the upper ball joint here and the shoulder. Look, I can fit 2 fingers. Okay, and that's actually one reason I went with the 0 offset, is in case I ever wanted to run chains or tire cables, because here in Pennsylvania we get a lot of snow, especially northern Pennsylvania, a lot of lake effect snow. Sometimes it's good to put chains, but it's good to have a little bit more wiggle room between your upper ball joint and your sidewall. You don't want to have just a 1/4 inch or something, because remember, when you're going off-road, your tires pick stuff up. Okay, look, this is just from driving on my driveway, and we have chunks of mud here stuck in the lugs. So you're going to be going off-road, and your shoulder lugs and your side biters are going to catch debris, stones, mud, ice, and as you're driving, that's going to tear up this upper ball joint. So you want to have a good clearance here. Okay, here I can almost fit 3 fingers. All right, so we're going to cut the mud flap now and reinstall it, but first I'm going to do the other side, and then I'm going to do the mud flaps. But as you guys can see, plenty of room. Okay, see if I can get my phone in there. Look at all that room. Okay, so huge difference. So let's do the other side now, and then we'll do the mud flaps. So we're on the other side now. First thing we're gonna do is take this screw off right here, and then that screw off right there, and then we're just gonna gently pop the wheel well liner out from the frame here. Then we're gonna unbolt the bracket and zip tie it, and we'll be good to go. All right, guys, so the screws are out. You can see we got flex here, and we're just gonna bend this gently. Okay, just enough so we can see what we're doing in there and get a ratchet in there. That's good enough. That's all you need to do. Okay, you don't need to do more. You don't have to take any more screws off. There's a screw up there. You don't have to do that. You just need to get a ratchet in there and get the ratchet in there, and that's it. That's all you need. And there is like this insulation here. It's pretty thick. You're gonna have to pull the insulation away too, so you can gain access to the top 2 bolts. So don't be afraid to pull the insulation away. And there's our bolt right there. So very easy. They come off very easy. I'm actually just loosening it by hand now, and we just have one more bolt to do. Sometimes the bottom bolt can be tough because that's the one that's exposed to the road. So let me just show you. So these are our 3 bolts, and you can see this was the one on the bottom, and it was a little bit rusted. All right, guys, second bracket off. Let me show you. Look at this. Look at all this space now we're gonna have. Look at that. All that space in there. Huge amount of space. So this is literally a lifesaver, guys, because without doing this, even if you added an extra 2 inches of lift, you would still run into rubbing against that stupid bracket back there. So it's really the bracket that's the killer on these trucks. Just get that bracket out and you'll be able to easily run 34s, 35s with conservative width and offset on your wheels. All right, guys, so I want to just give you another look at how I'm doing this. Okay, so here's one of the bolt holes. Right above the bolt hole, there's like another hole This is on the frame. So not the bolt hole for the mud flap bracket, not the bottom bolt hole, but there's like another hole right above it. You see right there? So you're going to run your zip tie through that and then through this hole right here. And I like to put the tag end this way, not towards the tire, okay? And you don't want to do it too tight, you see? I have it just enough so it holds everything and it pushes it in a little bit, but you don't want to really tighten it too much because you could tear your fender liner here, okay? And if you tear this little piece right here, you know, you're gonna have to make another hole in it and that could eventually tear again. So just keep it, you know, tight but not super tight so there's not too much pressure here, just enough to tuck this in, okay? And you'll be good to go. So I like to use 2 zip ties just for peace of mind because over time, you know, plastic wears out. Especially if you do off-roading, this is going to be exposed to heat, cold, snow, ice, you know, mud, whatever, salt in the winter. So check up on these every month or so. Just bend down, take a look, make sure they're still there, okay? Because it is plastic, so it wears out. You may have to put new ones, but that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, it's a little cheap, you know? Saves you tons and tons of money on a lift and level kit. So let's put this other zip tie in and then we'll put the mud flap back on just to see where exactly I have to trim it. But I think I'm gonna have to trim it like right here somewhere, so basically in half. So that should be easy to do. So now that we have the mud flap back on, you can see how much space we made by removing the bracket. Look. So this is where the bracket was, right where my fingers are, okay? You can see we're hitting the mud flap basically just past this screw. So we're gonna have to trim like right down here, just straight down, and just trim the front, not the back. The back, we can keep the back part, okay? Because it's not just this piece, there's a piece on the back here. I don't know if you guys can see. There's a piece in the back right there. So we're gonna just trim the front part. This way we still have protection. Just gonna cut it right there and we'll be good to go. But you see, it was rubbing. But look at all the space we created there. You see the difference? Huge difference and a lifesaver. All right, guys, let me show you how I trim the mud flap. So what I did was I didn't cut the whole mud flap in half. I left the back part of it because it was just the front part that was rubbing, okay? So there's actually like 2 parts. It's not just one piece. So this way I still get some protection. And this jagged cut here is just because I'm using shears and it's hard for me to get in there and make a straight cut. But if you want the cleanest look, get you some heavy-duty shears. These are made by Crescent, 15 bucks at Home Depot or Lowe's or any home improvement store. Cuts through this like butter. No need to use a grinder or a sawzall or a hacksaw, okay? These shears will cut through it like butter, okay? So let's mount this up and turn the wheel and see if we rub still. But you can see how much room this is gonna make, okay? Because I removed all of this, which would normally be here, okay? So I just wanna clock the wheel back and forth and see if we're gonna catch on this little piece right here. Because what I don't wanna do is make a turn and catch this with the lugs and tear it off, you know? So we gotta see how much clearance we have. So let's mount it up and see what happens. All right, guys, so I mounted it up and it looks like we're hitting down here. So I'm gonna have to trim the bottom part off. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna trim the bottom part off, but let's clock the wheel and see if we're gonna hit this and catch on this and tear it off. All right, guys, so I think we're gonna be good. Got about a finger of room here. What I may do, just to be on the safe side, is I may just cut a little more here so when the tire swings back this way when I'm turning, less of a chance that something could catch here and tear this whole thing off. So I'm gonna just kind of come in a little bit and then come down, so this way I have some peace of mind. And then I'm gonna trim the bottom here because it looks like we're gonna hit on the bottom there. So all right guys, so we're at almost full lock and you can see the mud flap is hitting right there. So we're gonna cut it and hopefully that'll help. All right guys, so I want to show you my progress here. So I had to trim the whole bottom of the flap off. I trimmed it a little bit more over here, so when I swing the wheel back, it's not going to catch on this. We have a lot of clearance now. So basically that's what you're going to want to do. And we're still going to get protection from this, even though it's cut. You see, it's still going to protect this area here. Otherwise we'd have crap just splashing all up, stones and mud, and you would tear up your paint here after maybe even just one trip. So let me just show you guys what it looks like. It looks kind of funny, but it'll provide protection for sure. All right guys, let me show you how I trim these flaps. So this is the finished product, and this is still going to protect the vehicle. Still have some protection here versus doing a mud flap delete. You have no protection, so you're going to kick up all kinds of crap here. So I'm going to screw this back on and turn the wheel for you guys and show you how it looks. But there you have it. If you want to fit 34s or 35s on your Silverado Trail Boss, there's a little trick or hack for you. All right guys, so here's the finished product. Check it out. Got plenty of clearance here. This is flexible now, but there you have it guys. There's your hack to fit 34s and 35s inside of a Chevy Silverado Trail Boss stock. No extra lift or level. So if you want to see more Chevy Silverado content, check out my off-roading and truck playlist. I'll leave a link in the top right corner. But that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.